Hi there, I'm Phil Harris. I've been doing a number of basic bike fits for people recently. One of the things I've noticed is that pretty much all of the people that I've looked at have had no idea where their cleats should be positioned on their cycle shoes. They just had them from new, fitted them on in a pretty much neutral central position and taken it from there. The position of the cleats on the shoes is important for two main reasons really. One around getting optimum power through the pedal stroke. If you have the cleat too far forward or backwards, you will not be getting your power through your foot properly. And then secondly, around reducing injury and pain coming through your body about the angles you're at, and that's going to be manifest mostly through the knees. So we'll have a look at positioning of those, also have a chat through the different types of cleat that are available to you. Okay, so first of all, there are three basic types of cleat available. There is the basic SPD, which is fitted here onto a mountain bike shoe, and they're most commonly used on mountain bike shoes. You can see they're quite small in size, just have two bolts holding them in, and they allow a lot of movement and a lot of float. So there's a lot of left to right movement of the heel, which is good for mountain bikes. It means you can get your feet out quickly. Not so good for a road bike because you can't get so much power in, but they're a lot easier to get in and out. So as a beginner, it's quite a nice cleat to use. Secondly, then we've got the Look Keo Cleat. Look Keo Cleat. You can see one here, which is actually quite well worn. They come in three different colours. So the grey one you can see on here is the sort of mid-range one, 4.5 degrees of float left to right. They click in at the front, click in again at the back, give you some really good security. They come in so grey here, as I said, 4.5 degrees of float. They come in a red, which is 9 degrees of float, which is a lot, probably more than you want. So the grey is the main one, or a black, which is nothing, actually absolutely locks you in place. The third one, very similar to the Look cleat. This one here is an SPD-SL cleat, and again they come in three colours. Just to confuse people, they're different range of movements in them, different range of float. So it's yellow on these, which are the most common, which is 6 degrees, which is fine for most people. Blue, which you see I've got on here for myself, which is 2 degrees, so much less movement. If you're more confident in your cycling and in the position of your cleat on your shoe, blue's quite good because it gives you still a little bit of movement, but actually doesn't have you wobbling it around so much, so it actually helps you get the power through. And then red, which is again is a 0 degrees movement. You really need to be absolutely bang on with your positioning for that to be helpful for you. So the benefit of the Look and the SPD-SL over the SPD cleats are the amount of power you can get through. They've got a much bigger base, so you get more power through the cleat. There is more adjustability in them, backwards and forwards, left and right, and on an angle basis. And as you see, you've got the three different types giving you different types of float in there. Okay, so to carry out the cleat fitting onto your shoe, you're going to need a few things. First of all, you're going to need the shoe, which is appropriate to the type of cleat that you've got. As you see, three holes in this particular one allow the positioning of the SPD-SL or a Look, or the Look, which fits in a very similar way. Or if you had a mountain bike shoe, it has to be the two-pin SPD cleat. I'm really going to be talking about positioning for an SPD-SL or a Look, and the principles for both of these are exactly the same. So you need a shoe, you need the cleat, and you need the right kind of pedal on your bike to fit that. So clearly you need an SPD-SL pedal if you are going to be fitting an SPD-SL cleat. The Look and SPD-SL cleats are not compatible together. So yeah, pedal, cleat, shoe, if you've got all that, that's good. In addition, you're going to need a roll of masking tape, a pen, and a multi-tool or a set of Allen keys to be able to undo your screws. If you've got the Look type, you can actually use a flathead screwdriver with those, even easier to fit. Once you've got all your bits ready to go, take your masking tape, take a small strip of it, stick it onto the inside of your shoe, lining up against where your cleat is or would be going if you haven't yet put it on the shoe. Then put your shoe on your foot. fasten it up. Take your pen, right, and find where the ball of your foot is. That's the bony part of your foot. So find the ball of your foot. For me, it's about there, and then mark that with the pen on the side. It's the inside of your foot you're looking at. Okay, and repeat that process for the other foot. So once you've done that, you've got the shoe back up. So the position you're showing there, marked on, you're following through and looking where that's lining up through on the underside of the shoe. Now, you'll find on SPD-SL cleats, you might not be able to see it on the video here, there is a small, trying to show it on the video, there is a small little plastic marker just here, and that should be lining up with and lining through with that black line. If I show you on look cleats, they have a marking line on the side here. So obviously I've not marked this shoe, but you see the line there coming down from it. So it's a small little knob on the side of the SPD-SL cleat. They're quite difficult to see on the video, but you'll feel it there. It's a little notch. That lines up with the position of the ball of your foot. And as long as that is in position, so that should be lined straight through. That line with the little mark on the pedal, on the cleat rather, should be lined straight through, and you've got your cleat in the right position forwards and backwards. So you now have your cleat in the right place forward backwards on the shoe, after front. So now we're going to have a look at what angle you put it at, because you'll see that there is quite a lot of movement, both sideways and angular, on this as to how you can position that cleat on the pedal. Now, sideways movement I always do after the angle, so get the angle first, and then potentially look at the sideways. So sideways, you might be able to need to move it in or out depending on the angle of your shoe. So we'll talk about how you position that angle now. So the best way of setting the angle is literally to just start walking across the room in a normal way, stop, and have a look at how your feet are pointing. It's easier for somebody else to do this for you, or to do it with somebody else while they're watching you. If you look at my feet here, my left foot over this side is pointing slightly heel in, so slightly toe out, slightly duck-footed. The other foot is slightly more duck-footed, so my toes are out, heels are in. That is my natural standing position. That is where my knees are used to my feet being. So I need to try and replicate something similar to that on the bike. If I try and just put my feet in a neutral position by standing, both pointing straight forward, you'll feel well, I certainly feel that's really quite uncomfortable for me. And that's going to put stress, if I was to cycle like that, put stress and discomfort and pain potentially through my knees. So you've established the angle that your feet are naturally at, and therefore you want to try and replicate that position approximately with your shoes. So I was standing more or less straight with my left foot and slightly out with my right. So broadly speaking, they should be looking something like so. So you need to then loosen the cleats on the underside, and create that position with the cleat. So loosen the cleat, position the cleat over the edge of a straight edge like a worktop or a bench, and push it with the cleat staying locked against that worktop edge to create the angle that you need to do. So pushing it to the position, roughly speaking, of where that foot was positioned, and then repeat for the second foot as well. So bringing that heel slightly in, the toe slightly out. Once you've done that, lift the shoe away and tighten those cleats in that position. Once you've tightened them up, put them back on again, check that they're looking about right, and assuming they are, you're ready to go. Put them on the bike and give it a whirl. So if once you've done all of that, you've put your cleats on, you've tightened them all up, they're all ready to go, you put them on the bike and you start pedaling, and you find that you're rubbing, because most people do actually walk slightly duck-footed, slightly toes out, heels in. If you find that you've positioned it such the heel is rubbing on your chainset, on your crank arms, then you may find you've moved them in too far, so you've angled it in so your heel is too close to the pedal, or potentially you can look at that may be the right place for your foot to be, you can look at either buying pedals with they have longer axle shafts on them, which actually push the pedal further away from the crank, or you can look at putting spacers in there. But I wouldn't put spacers in there if you're not confident and competent about what you're doing with your pedals. If you find the rubbing and you think, well, actually maybe I could just move that out a little bit so it doesn't rub, then that'll work. So once you've got them in what you think is about the right place, go out, have a ride, see how it feels. It should feel natural. You shouldn't feel any issues with your knees. If you have issues with your knees and feeling that after about 10-15 miles on the bike, then that needs looking at again. Obviously, if I'm able to do a bike fit with you, then I'll have a look at them myself and just look to check that they look in roughly the right place. It's not an exact science. A lot of it is done by feel. So if you find it doesn't feel right, it is still worth looking at and adjusting again. But that is the principles behind how you should fit a cleat, position a cleat on a shoe.